Today on the Topping Show, a man allegedly flashes a girl at a gym locker room, the YMCA, and management says, it's okay. Also, Metcalf family is swatted for the third time. Minnesota will not prosecute Tim Walz staffer for Tesla vandalism. John Deere releases a tractor that's $1.2 million. And Mazda Miata, the cars arrived, but they can't be delivered because of, well, might be missing some pieces. All of that and much more on the Topping Show. Thank you everyone for taking the time to tune in today. Today's episode of the Topping Show is proudly sponsored by Topping Technologies. Topping Technologies is an IT value-added reseller and services company with a special proficiency IT security. Heck, I see their founder at least twice a day. Gotta say he's quite handsome and brilliant. He's me, see, that's the joke. If you're an IT leader or business owner, you can reach out to the team at sales@toppingtechnologies.com. Also, still giving away a free Flamethrower with every IT purchase with Picatinny rail adapter, so you can mount it to any standard AR-15 like all awesome accessories can be. Go to toppingtechnologies.com and click the Flamethrower button to learn more and see me shooting a flamethrower. Lastly, trying to get to 5,000 subscribers by the end of the month, so if you can click that button and tell your friends, I would greatly appreciate it. Now going over to the business part of the podcast, you have John Deere's new behemoth of a tractor that cost $1.2 million, which is quite a pretty penny to say the least. Now this is brought to us thanks to Caleb at thedrive.com, and here you can see that ginormous tractor that's, well, as large as a Hummer. I'm kidding, it's even bigger than those monstrosities. Now they say, quote, the largest, most powerful John Deere tractor ever is this 830 horsepower, $1.2 million behemoth. Unless you have thousands of acres to tend to, you probably don't need the John Deere 9RX 830, which, I don't know, it sounds pretty technical, but couldn't they thought of a cooler name? So many companies fall into the BMW nomenclature. Well, Cadillac does this too, same with Mercedes. I don't know, kind of miss the era of the 70s and 80s where they just had crazy names for everything, but I partially digress. This is, yeah, you have a truck. Now, granted, the truck, that they should have done this for promotion. They have a truck in the background, so again, it's not to scale. They should have like an F-150 truck next to it because, let's be honest, if you're a farmer, I mean, this is America. We're not going to use, when we measure things in America, we don't use things like meters and millimeters, except bullets. But what we do, we take measurements in like F-150. That'd be a good scale to compare it to. Unfortunately, the John Deere marketing department failed yet again. They didn't put that right next to that ginormous tractor. And yeah, it almost looks like one of those Caterpillar trucks that's used for moving ore in the mining industry. Is that scale, which, fun fact of the day, largest truck on the planet. It's the Caterpillar, I forget the name of it, but it's the one that is used for mining where they move all the rocks. Now, they say, quote, John Deere has made plenty of big machinery in the past, but this one is green and yellow's largest ever. It's called the 9RX 830, thanks to its, here we go, 18-liter turbo diesel engine, the most powerful Deere yet. If you have thousands of acres that need to be taken care of and fast, this could be for you. Which, yeah, you'll see the engine in a second here, but 18 liters. Oh, that's pure testosterone right there. I mean, that is about 18 of my Honda Civic Si engines in terms of displacement. Now, they say, quote, John Deere's 9 Series tractors are not brand new, and of course, we don't talk about farm vehicles too often here, but a video of the 9RX in action caught our attention. We thought car fans would appreciate the majesty of this monster. There are 3 high horsepower 9RX models, the 710, 770, and Miatas 830. Deere proclaims these can seed with twice the cartload in the hills and go 1 mile per hour faster while doing it compared to the previous 9RX models, which is kind of hilarious to think of that being a big deal. But again, in the aggregate, just like semi-trucks, those make, I mean, again, with time, distance, energy, everything adds up dramatically in the aggregate. But just like, yeah, on a small scale, that's, nothing in comparison. Now, they say, quote, you don't have to know a lot about tractors to understand 830 horsepower in, here we go, 3,123 foot-pound of torque is a lot of power. All that comes from a JDM, no, I'm just kidding. A JD18s, I mean, never forget Hector's running spoon engines. And if you don't get that reference, I'll die inside. But nevertheless, they say, quote, it's a JD18 6-cylinder diesel engine, which runs a series turbocharger setup and weighs 4,672 pounds on its own. Wow, talk about a big transmission. 21-speed transmission doesn't figure into that weight, by the way. Importantly, the 9RX 830 operates without diesel exhaust fluid. Nice, you don't have to buy that crap. Which means farmers might need DEF for their Cummins or Power Stroke setup, but not this tractor. Which, well, hopefully Trump gets rid of the bureaucracy that is the EPA and job destroyer that's the EPA, so you don't have to have those things ruining the efficiency and destroying your engine in the future for all platforms. And here you can see that ginormous engine, just as a behemoth to say the least. Now, they say that the 9RX 830 spec list is longer than the CVS receipt, which that might be a dated concept. That company is barely in business. So rest assured, it doesn't stop the engine. The hydraulic system can run 168 gallons per minute when fitted with the optional triple pump, more than enough for most attachments, even those appropriately sized for such a massive machine. And because it's so stout, it's rated to handle a max ballast weight of, geez Louise, 84,000 pounds, or 1 Rosie O'Donnell. It's a little metric measurement there. And they say, I could ramble on longer about the rig's cab and how spacious it is, or how John Deere's labels it as autonomous ready, but I won't. To be fair, without writing it, I can't tell you much how to operate it. Let's see here. Let's scroll down. We can see it in action for a second here. Look at that thing. The tank. Holy smokes.
Hi, Big Tractor Power fans. This video.
That is huge. Here you can see more still pictures of it. Now, the downside is it's a John Deere, so it's going to be a pain in the ass to repair, aka you can't, because John Deere hates right to repair. They famously sue farmers all the time and oppose all legislation that wants, farmers to be able to repair their own things on their own, which is so stupid, which means you're going to have to pay John Deere a pretty penny to fly out. They're going to have to fly out a technical expert or, mechanic with a myriad of spare parts, or you have to drag that monstrosity to the John Deere dealership and have them fix it under the blessings of John Deere Corporate, which again is a franchisee's model, and they have all their special proprietary tools there. Imagine towing this monstrosity. Yeah, that's going to be a pain. And other companies like Case New Holland, or shortly known as Case in the agriculture industry, have the same practice. They'll fly out a technical resource, you'll pay them a lot of money to fix it, because you can't. So to me, this is a really cool Marvel engineering. It's really neat. It's going to be revolutionary for all these big farmers. Now, unfortunately, I think it's going to be mainly corporations, as small farmers are forced out of the industry. Yeah, some a-hole like Bill Gates, his farms will get these so they can make some of that organic, the fake burgers crap they're trying to force us to eat. Because again, this is $1.2 million. Now, granted, every dealership under the sun is going to finance these, so they'll make more money that way, obviously, as an extra revenue model for them. But even with that, the scale of farm you would have to make this business sense, I mean, it's going to have to be basically the largest of the businesses will have these. Which, again, they will benefit. They'll get a good ROI out of this machine after a while. Now, a lot of comments down here are mentioning the life cycle machines. A lot of people say farmers will keep them for, 10, 20, 30 years plus. Now, another issue with that is, well, the newer equipment isn't lasting as long, just like cars these days. A lot of people say cars are more reliable than ever. Technically speaking, they're not, because the number of recalls, some of the components are more reliable, but they're also less easy to repair as an individual. A lot of them have lockout features from the factory. Even my Honda Civic Si, which I love her, my Gen 10 green coupe, I love that car. However, I actually can't change the rear brake calipers rear brake pads without putting it in service mode, which you can only do if you have that fancy $2,000 snap-on computer, or go to the Honda dealership, which will put it in service mode, which will retract the pain-in-the-ass electric e-brake, rudimentary speaking, so it gives you the space to change out the brake pads. The only way to do that yourself is to manually unbolt these stupid e-brake or parking brake motors. You have to unbolt those things, manually finagle with them, and bolt them back on when you're done, which you can do, but it's a pain in the rear. And there's zero reason that should exist. So even Honda does it, and I love Honda. John Deere is the worst of the worst in terms of right to repair or lack thereof. So it's another. I think it's also the sign that the industry is shifting for farming. A lot of big businesses and large-scale farmers are taking over the mom and pop shops as they're being forced out. And again, this will be beneficial for the big guys. And in theory, it'll be better for the consumer because it'll decrease the cost of goods sold because it'll be more efficient than the previous things that they were doing for the actual farming processes. So again, there's some upsides to the situation, but again, I really wish it was a company that believed in right to repair. Very few companies do. I mean, the John Deere isn't too unique in that regard, but it is a pretty cool, piece of marvel of engineering, ginormous, the most expensive ever. And again, you look at the evolution of John Deere, it's impressive where they've come from. But let me know. I mean, come from the Midwest, kind of default, some farmers growing up. And I mean, all the families I know, and, mostly in Iowa, I mean, none of them are going to be able to afford this. I mean, even if you lease this, I mean, geez Louise, with a 7% interest rate these days, that's going to be painful to say the least. But let me know your thoughts, because as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Going over to the cultural part podcast, you have a man allegedly flashing a woman at YMCA, and YMCA just says, no, it's okay. You can be there. He identified as a woman. Yet another reason to not use public gyms. That's one of the bougie things I have in my life. I'm very extremely blessed to be in a situation where I could rent a house where I actually put some gym equipment in so I can just work out at home, which also good for time optimization. I don't have to go to the gym. But you do lose that sense of community. Though my pet rock does cheer me on when I'm doing the bench press, but I partially digress. This is brought to us thanks to Lives at TikTok, and kudos for Shia for calling him out. And she says, quote, breaking, a man in the North Kansas City YMCA in Missouri reportedly entered the women's locker room and geez Louise, I try to keep this moderately family friendly, exposed his private part to a 7-year-old girl and her mother. When confronted by the mother, the man reportedly said, honey, I'm a woman. Which, maybe I will mock. You can kind of guess his tone, but I won't go there for now. And she continues saying, quote, the YMCA released a statement saying, quote, individuals are allowed to use the locker room or restroom they identify with. Then she says local police have opened an investigation for the indecent exposure, allegedly, or to have that little caveat there. And yeah, I think it is crazy to think YMCA is, young men's Christian. So, I mean, people forget it used to be religiously based. The YMCA has fallen worse than the Catholic Church and the previous Pope. It's like they forgot their whole meaning and whole core, which is disappointing to say the least. And this is one of those viral things she's posted all year. And it got 17.3 million views and 61,000 likes. And it's about a little video here. Sorry, I should put a visual disclaimer. So many boring, bland, white SUVs. But obviously, that's not the core of the story. Without too much further ado.
It was less than 10 days ago when a Metro mother and her daughter had finished up swimming lessons where she says hundreds of children attended. They went to the women's locker room to change. That's when she says she heard a man's voice. She then decided to leave, but as she and her child walked out of the stall, they encountered a naked man, his privates on full display. She asked what in the world he was doing. The woman claims he said something to the effect of, quote, honey, I'm a woman. She and her child then sprinted out of the...
It's also a big red flag. I've never heard a real man. I've never heard... I mean, some terms are just like a red flag, like a guy saying honey.
The locker room. That woman spoke to Fox 4 on Monday, and she says they were not the only ones who saw.
My 11-year-old does use that locker room, especially after we go to the pool. And in there, you either have the closed down showers or you kind of try to change as quickly as possible. So it's definitely shocking and something that we'll be looking out for a little bit more.
The YMCA tells Fox 4 it's investigating the matter, saying in part, we follow all state and local laws and individuals are allowed to use the locker room or restroom that they identify with. At the North Kansas City YMCA, we also have 4 private universal changing rooms available, separate from the larger shared locker rooms, for anyone who prefers the privacy they offer.
Now, this is also sad because I really can't think of a public gym these days that is a safe place. I mean, Planet Fitness famously loves everyone to use whatever restroom they want to. They got roasted last year for those terrible commercials. And you also have LA Fitness. Same thing. They had those little placards, which they paid for the nice placards. This wasn't a piece of 3-cent printer paper. They got the fancy placards that cost the actual dollars at LA Fitness that also say you can use whatever restroom you want. Yeah, so, I mean, I especially if I had children, it's hard to say where you should work out. And I think working out is one of the best things you can do for your health, mentally and physically. Thankfully, you can do a lot of calisthenics at home, push-ups, sit-ups, using your own body weight. But aside from the point, it's got, again, 17.3 million views and 61,000 likes. Scrolling down to the comments, one of the first ones comes from Beth Bourne, saying, quote, same thing is happening at the Berkeley YMCA, but women have had enough. DM me if you're in NorCal and want to get individuals at our YMCA protest. Getting 6.3 thousand likes. Happening all over. Gunther Eagleman says, quote, the man should be locked up and away for children for life. Getting 6.5 thousand likes. Yeah. Unfortunately, sanity is a rare thing in the United States these days. I mean, culturally, I do think the average person I don't think they realize this type of shenanigans and perversions are happening in the real world. I think if everyone realized that, there'd be a lot more protests against YMCA, and maybe we'll see a chain reaction. But yeah, I don't think a lot of people just think these are myths. They don't see it actually happen in the real world. Oh, it is. Well, disappointed. Planet of memes. I'll say alleged planet of memes, because yet again, they do not have a meme. He says, quote, doesn't the CYMCA stand for Christian? Yeah, it used to. Getting 773, it's making 70, 74 likes. Yeah, used to be a place to help people out. Used to be have morals and values. Granted, so the Catholic Church. Now, again, it's individual churches and actual places of worship. Some are good, don't get me wrong, but yeah, past couple years, seeing what the Vatican stance, our main issues are, many people of faith have been greatly disappointed by that organization, especially when it comes to protecting children or lack thereof, where they move offenders around. I think that's one of the major contributing factors of why religious affiliations are decreasing, or one of the variables. Libercat Media TM says, quote, it's not the drag queens you have to be worried about, or these are quotes of quotes. Trans people just want to exist, not expose themselves. Worry about churches, not trans people. All the things that leftists say, then this happens, getting 600 likes, which, again, you should also focus on the churches, and the biggest offender people do not talk about, public schools, actually. One of the biggest vectors of child abuse. Sarah Smith, I should maybe clarify this for the YouTube rules. I do not at all believe, what do you say this? This is not supposed to be violent, or I'm not advocating violence. Little caveat there. Now, Sarah Smith says, quote, I think we need to start implementing the death penalty for PDFs, which, yeah, one of the most sad, perverse things about the United States in terms of justice or lack thereof. And again, I'm not original in this analysis or this observance. One of my friends was looking at a meme, we were talking about it. He says, in the United States, if a child is hurt by a dog, you put the dog down. If a human hurts a child, they go to jail for a year or two and they're let out. Pretty messed up that, yeah, children are not more greatly protected in all ways, not just from physical animals. Now, they also have a picture of a gal holding a poster board saying TED PDFs don't reoffend, getting 4.3 thousand likes. This is true. It's a funny meme made by Artemis, saying, quote, which is a picture of a man in a trench coat flashing. It says, pervert, old sex offender. That's the same man with a dog. What? A dog mask on? Looks like it made of leather. And as the trans flag, it says, pride, free expression. Okay, 1.3 thousand likes, which is a good, it's true. Kind of reminds me of the average modern pride parades, which they used to be, clothed. Nowadays, yeah, mostly naked and exposing themselves to children, which, yeah, that's illegal, but they get away with it. Let's see. Going down more and more. Crossfires, this is a good story. Well, not good because something bad happened, but good in terms of justice, which seems to be a rare thing these days. Crossfire says, quote, a man followed a girl into a bathroom and he started identifying as a woman. The man's teeth were knocked out by the girl's father, who identified as the Tooth Fairy, getting 6.5 thousand likes. Which I've seen. I wish there's an article to the specific instance of that happening. I've heard about that for a while. I'm trying to remember where it actually took place. Hopefully it's just not a modern myth. What's up? The Purple Whale says, quote, I hear this happens daily at Planet Fitness in Bellevue. A person with a penis sits in a locker room. Oh, geez Louise. With, who is there's a lot of blood in that area and watches people change. They cannot or will not do anything against it because they're accused of being intolerant, getting 712 likes, which I think that word intolerant is becoming less and less effective these days in terms of social ostracization. And I think a lot of people are just saying I don't care anymore. It's kind of like the term racist. I mean, in the 90s, just saying that word would scare everyone. You'd be canceled, your life be ruined. And again, racism is disgusting, but they've expanded that use and expanded what they consider what racism to be to the point where it's lost all meaning. So I think we're culturally getting there to the point where people say, yeah, I don't care. You can call me intolerant. I do not care. Men should not be changing inside the girls' locker rooms. So hopefully these companies actually change their policies. Again, I do think culturally speaking, we had a shift in the United States, partially symbolized by Trump winning the populist, election, or the, not just the electoral college, but the popular vote. But let me know, do you think the average person realizes this is happening? And then do you think the average person thinks men should be able to change in women's locker rooms? Let me know in the comments, because as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Other interesting cultural news, you have Austin Metcalf's family swatted for the third time. More from the tolerant left, I'm sure. Now, this is brought to us thanks to End Wokeness, and it's credited to an interview with ABC, and he says, quote, Austin Metcalf's family was swatted for the third time in the past few days.
They've responded to a third swatting call targeting Austin Metcalf's family. That's when someone calls in a false threat trying to trigger a massive police response.
He says someone, you can be honest, leftist.
Investigators say someone reported a shooting at Jeff Metcalf's house on Monday night. That's the second swatting call to Austin Metcalf's father. And it comes days after we learned someone placed a similar call to his mother Megan's home. Their son was stabbed to death 3 weeks ago at a track meet in Frisco.
It should have got more views. It got about 200,000 views and 6.4 thousand likes. I mean, thankfully, the Department of Justice is actually starting to prosecute people for these false swattings. Because again, these leftists, crazy folks, are hoping harm befalls to these people. And I can't but notice the swatting is only used as a mechanism one way. It's terrorism. Now, the comments, Gunther Eagleman says, quote, this shit has to be stopped, getting 281 likes. Paul Zupa says, this is terrorism. Whoever's doing this needs to be getting life in prison. Agree, getting 151. Ooh, 52 likes, going up like a stock. I Love Merrick News is fact and says swatting is attempted murder. And domestic terrorism, getting 153 likes. Miss Jinx says, quote, but Carmelo's family had to move for, quote unquote, safety when their only threat was their murderer son, getting 309 likes. Yeah. You also have Dominic Michael Trippy, which, again, going back to that comment with Carmelo's family had to move for safety. Yeah. I don't know about that. Kind of, let's see. People are making fun of him online, but when it comes to actual physical violence, usually only one side of political aisles this has become a cultural issue, but also a political issue as well. Dominic Michael Trippy says, quote, his father's gotten swatted 3 times at a separate home. His mother and brother have been swatted several times as well. The father was also forced to resign from his job, and twin brother is receiving death threats. Unbelievable. Getting 490 likes. I didn't know the father, I didn't know he lost his job. I need to look into that. Fact check that. I'm curious. What does Grok say? Did Austin Metcalf father lose his job? Which should be terrible because obviously they're the victim. Really? So again, it's from Grok. It says, quote, yes, Jeff Metcalf, the father of Austin Metcalf, reportedly resigned from his real estate job following the events surrounding his son's death. According to a report from Marca, Metcalf quit his job due to fears of safety of his colleagues and his clients after he and his ex-wife were targeted by swatting incidents, hoax emergency calls sent to their homes. Wow. I was going to say, we live in a country, culturally speaking, where the victim is now treated as... the bad guys get more incentive, culturally speaking, and are treated better than the good guys. Again, this family lost their son because Carmelo Anthony allegedly, well, we know he stabbed Austin Metcalf to death because apparently Carmelo went into the guy's tent or gazebo at a track event, and they wanted him to leave because he was trespassing. And yet, the family who lost his son and twin brother, they're losing their jobs, they're getting death threats. Carmelo Anthony is making hundreds of thousands of dollars now with donations, which in part are going to be used for his defense. But again, they're raising, I believe it was over $500,000 now. And he's being treated by a celebrity, by leftist political commentators and mainstream commentators. Ridiculous. So the father actually stepped down from his job because he's that fearful. That's disgusting. You have someone by the name of Trumpetta saying, quote, we must sentence Carmelo Anthony to life and arrest all riders. in 259 likes, which, again, he's going to have his day in court. I suspect this will be a straightforward court case, but culturally speaking, that's a fascinating thing. I mean, from a legal perspective, I think it'll be pretty straightforward. But culturally speaking, people are making it very much complicated, making it a race thing, since Kamala was African American and Austin was Caucasian or white. And yeah, it's a sad world where the good guys are treated like the bad guys and bad guys are treated like the good guys. But let me know, do you think the father will get his job back, or think he'll get back on the job and find gainful employment, after this whole thing settles down? And shoot, if Carmelo Anthony is, sentenced to prison, or maybe actually gets a death penalty for taking another person's life, I mean, what will happen to the Metcalf family? Will they riot against him? We've seen it before, but let me know in the comments, because as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Going over to the political part podcast, Minnesota will not prosecute Tim Walz staffer for Tesla vandalism as their third world hellhole of a state continues to be lawless. I'm actually not joking. This is the same state where a gal caused a lot of property damage to a Tesla, and they said they wouldn't prosecute her because they're making fun of her online, and she felt bad. That's not a joke. Those corrupt pieces of scum police over there said, oh yeah, we're not going to prosecute her because people make fun of her online. Yeah, that's a real thing. And of course, they don't actually believe, I mean, it's nothing more ironic than them saying they're the party of peace when they cause billions of dollars property damage and human lives being taken. Now, this is from Benny Johnson on X, and he says, quote, "This is Minnesota," and I'm actually mispronouncing that on purpose as a slight to their state. Some might argue it's so passive-aggressive, but it makes me smile. So this is Minnesota District Attorney Mary Majari. Today, she filed felony charges against a 19-year-old woman for allegedly keying her coworker's car. Just yesterday, she refused to charge a Tim Walz staffer who did over $20,000 to 6 Teslas. Two-tier justice system. And of course, it's a cliche liberal white woman. She has a t-shirt that says Black Defenders Matter, and she has a blazer on, which blazers, I actually do like blazers on guys, obviously. Well, I don't like guys, but you know what I mean. Men always look best when we suit up, so I do it daily. Plus, a good ROI. I bought this suit like 10 plus years ago. Wear it every day. I mean, that's the best, was it $360? It's a lot of money. But yeah, one of the best ROIs of all time. But I partially digress. And this should have got more views. Maybe it's just because people realize how corrupt and terrible Minnesota is and how lawlessness it is. But yeah, got 200,000 views. And again, I'll reiterate that today she filed felony charges against a 19-year-old woman for allegedly keying her coworker's car. Just yesterday, she refused to charge a Tim Walz staffer. It cost $20,000. Those people should be locked up for decades. You caused $20,000 of property damage, and you're also so stupid you don't realize that Teslas have like 6 to 20 million cameras on the outside of them. So you're dumb and you're immoral. Yeah, people who are like throwing Molotov cocktails at Teslas and causing those damage, yeah, they should be, get your day in court. Thankfully, there's a lot of camera evidence, video, digital evidence. But get your day in court, put defense. But yeah, I think once you're proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, throw them in jail. Now, going back to the comments, one of the first ones comes from, well, not the top comment by number of likes, but the most handsome comment. Well, obviously, it'll bias me, the topping show on X. And I say, quote, typical Democrats gain 2 likes. Sarah Smith says, this picture says it all. There's a picture of that prosecutor who's wearing khakis. I know girls wear khakis. Do they do that? Or kahikis, if you want to sound fancy. She's wearing khakis and a Pride Trans t-shirt. And I was going to say, the leftist, if she was a Republican, they'd say she's doing the Adolf salute, but, waving her hand. Yeah, short gray hair, which, well, can't critique her too much. Mine is growing and multiplying with the grays. They got 190 likes. Man Van Soul says, quote, her last name is literally Moriarty. Like the evil nemesis of Sherlock Holmes. You cannot make this shit up. Oh, that's fun. You get 368 likes. Ian Jager says she should lose her license for this, getting 442 likes. Anna's Writing Nook says, quote, Democrats will be the cause of our country's falling. Their toxic ideology and their two-tier justice system is a disgrace, getting 230 likes. The original Mr. Johnson has a picture of Minnesota and says, 0 days without being a national embarrassment, getting 37 likes. That might be a good question for the comments for that weak conquered state, which changed their flag to basically a Somalian flag because they imported so many of them. What's more of a disgrace, or what's more pathetic, Minnesota or Canada? Both totalitarian hellholes to me, but let me know in the comments about that. Steve says, if Congress had the authority to create courts, then they should have the authority to end them. Why aren't they getting 127 likes? Well, that's because that court is on a state issue. They're not committing, well, if you're doing $20,000 of damage, if you're going, you could argue it's terrorism activities on federal level, I guess, I think. Let me know. Giza says, quote, one law for the elites, another for everyone else. This is why people don't trust the system anymore. Yep. Getting 109 likes. So, yeah, more news out of the state of Minnesota and more injustice. And let me know, at this point, are you surprised? And do you think, will the feds try to step in or intervene? Let me know your thoughts, because, as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Going over to the business blunder of the day, you have Mazda Miatas here, but they can't be sold. Now, this is brought to us by Brian Hurd over at thedrive.com. And they say, quote, Mazda confirms 2025 Miata stuck at the U.S. ports due to a parts issue. Whoops. Now, they say a problem with the vehicle control unit has held up Miata deliveries for weeks now, and buyers have been frustrated by the lack of information, which, yeah. At least the picture looks pretty cool. Well, me, I like weird green Skittles colors like green cars, but this was a nice, burgundy or deep red or wine red or something like that with a tan top, which, yeah, it looks like... the Mazda Miata style has been growing on me. If I won the lottery, I'd probably buy one. Now, they say, quote, there's good news and bad news for customers waiting for the 2025 MX-5 Miatas this week. The good news, Mazda has acknowledged that there is, in fact, an issue impacting deliveries. Not so good news, may not be resolved immediately. Mazda says, quote, we are investigating a potential issue with the vehicle control module in certain MX-5s. Out of an abundance of caution, we have temporarily suspended deliveries of 2025 MX-5s. Mazda's team is working hard to remedy and hold up as efficiently as possible. Unquote. That's from a Mazda spokesperson or spokesman. As of this update, Mazda has not offered a timeline for when the delay may clear. This issue is affecting enough customers that word of holdups made its way to multiple online Mazda communities in recent weeks. Following a tip sent by a customer whose Miata hasn't moved since arriving at the port of Los Angeles 3 weeks ago, can be painful, found several reports of several other buyers having delays on forums and social media. Based on the limited information from dealers, it appears Mazda is waiting on some replacement parts before those vehicles can be shipped out for delivery. It's unclear precisely which module is the problem. Some VCMs manage the powertrain, while others deal with stability control. For example, our tipster and others have reportedly heard a culprit here pertains to the latter, which... Stability control? Come on, throw that crap out. I know there's laws, rules, regulations, but once you get... this thing's made for the track, and after a couple... Some of those things you shouldn't turn it off when you're at the beginning. It's kind of like training wheels on a bicycle. They're great when you're starting off, but before, after a couple of sessions on the track, the average driver, it starts to slow them down. But again, of all the things to hold it up, really, this thing's a track toy, stability control. But I partially digress. Now, here's actually a nice picture of the Miata from the side. I'll throw that on the screen. It's infinitely more attractive than my ugly mug. And they say, quote, when vehicles are held at port, it's often to address an issue that might have been discovered on the car when it left the factory. Sometimes they require a new physical part to replace a defective or improperly installed component. When Volkswagen was forced to withdraw the emission certifications for diesels during the emission scandal in 2015, thousands of vehicles are stranded in the ports waiting for the fix. Sometimes those holdovers are just software updates. In some cases, dealers are often capable of fixing the issue, but dealing with it at the port makes it for a better quality control process, reducing the likelihood that the car somehow slips through the cracks and ends up in the customer's hands with a defect, which is also kind of a nice way of saying dealers make a lot of mistakes too. Now, they say that despite the Mazda suggestion that all 2025 model year MX-5s are being held, it appears that some are actually making it to customers, which suggests that the issue is specifically only to a certain subset of Miatas. Our tip came from a customer who ordered a 35th anniversary model, pictured there, and after pursuing Miata.net, it appears he's not alone. But in that same thread, other members reportedly are taking delivery of the same trim, suggesting that all of them are similarly impacted or the Mazda status is starting to clear the backlog. They say quite a few current model year Miatas are already on U.S. lots. A cursory look at Auto Trader turned up more than 700 new ones at dealerships, which they look so much fun and tempting. And there's a really big stick ratio, or rather ratio of ones that come with a third pedal, which they should all have by default. But yeah, every once in a while I'll do window shopping at, looking at the Miatas for sale, and yeah, there's 30, 40,000. It's a great value, but personally can't pull the trigger on it in this currently. But yeah, I was going to say, of all the silly things to hold it up at the ports. And again, it also makes sense. It's good that they're getting ahead of the problem because, again, car companies don't like recalls. Except Ford. They seem to collect them like candy or Pokemon cards. But again, they got ahead of the situation. But still, when you're spending so much money on a vehicle, just having delay is one of the biggest pain and headaches out there. So again, it's good that they're getting from the problem. No one's been hurt from this. It's not a recall. But yeah, I gotta say, Mazda having basically not your halo car, but the car you're best known for, having issues where you're sitting around and collecting dust. Gotta say, Mazda, you are certainly the business blunder of the day. Thank you everyone for taking the time to tune in today. Again, trying to get to 5,000 subscribers by the end of the month, so you can click that button. I greatly appreciate it. Also, give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, or comment. It's a great way to give me some additional feedback, letting me know how I can make the show better and better. Lastly, don't forget to take time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe and fight the good fight.